It's Richard Wade from mediczone.co.uk, and welcome to you all. This is the first live stream that we've done on this channel, and in a moment I'm going to introduce you to our first guest, which I know you're going to find really interesting. And I won't mention too much about the individual coming on, because I'm going to let her tell you all about herself and her background, what she's done in her military career, and more importantly, what she's doing now and what's going on and the plans for the future. So I'm Richard Wade, and we've kicked off mediczone.co.uk very, very recently. The brand new website, I'm not going to talk about it too much. The brand new website is being built as we speak. And what we're going to do is introduce a new concept for the medical community, not just the military community, but across the whole of the medical spectrum. And it's going to be a place, a community, a zone where like-minded people with a medical background and a medical agenda can come together, share ideas, and lots of other stuff as well. But I'm not going to harp on about that too much at the moment. So it's Saturday the 8th of June. This is the first one. We're going to get kicking off in a couple of seconds time. So welcome to everybody. What I would like to say is, if you're watching live on YouTube now, and a few people are, thank you very much indeed. And also, if you watch it later on, it's going out to LinkedIn as well at the same time. Can I request, please, that you subscribe to the YouTube channel? It's a brand new entity. It's going to grow nicely over the coming months and years, so best to get in early. Also, thing to mention is you're able to interact live. So if you're on LinkedIn or you're on YouTube, if you have any questions or you want to make any comments, then by all means type them into the normal chat box, and they will appear on the right hand side of the studio here, and I get the opportunity to filter them before they appear on the screen. And I learned my lesson from that, from a previous live that I did, where we had profanities and jokes and things that maybe weren't that appropriate, but it won't happen again. So you can interact live. So shall we get cracking then? So without further ado, what I would like to do is bring in our guest for the day. So I'm going to introduce you to Robyn Snee, and Robyn is on screen now. Robyn, good morning and welcome, and thank you for being the first person to come on to our brand new channel. How are you doing today?
Morning, Richard. Yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you. Thank you for having me as your first prototype, really.
Oh no, thanks, mate. It's an absolute pleasure. And what we'll do towards the end of the little stream is we'll discuss, you know, where we happen to meet. And I have to make an apology to you right from the get-go. We're surrounded by Army and Army Medical Services, but I promise you, that's not the theme. The theme today is all about you and your background and your career as a Royal Navy medic. And I think it's worth mentioning here, Robyn, that this is not scripted. So everybody, we haven't planned any sort of questions. We have an idea of what we're allowed to talk about and what we're not allowed to talk about, but there's no script. We're going to go with the flow. So let's see where this goes. So I was wondering, Robyn, might be a good start just to, maybe if we start before you joined the Navy, and you know, maybe start of maybe the last year of your school, and how it led on to thinking, I know, I'll go in the Navy and be a medic. Tell us a little bit about that setup.
Yeah, so I did A levels, and then from leaving school, all my friends were applying to unis, and I did the same thing because that was a social norm to do. Yeah. I got my offers through, and then I was like, do you know what? Nah, I'm done with education. So I went traveling. I went to Australia for a year. Then I came back, got jobs in between, bit of childcare, bit of warehouse work. And then I was like, I want to go traveling again. So I went over to America for about a month, I think it was. Dipped into Canada as well. Wow. And then I come back, same thing happened. I got little jobs here and there, but again, I had the urge. So I went around Europe and went all over Europe. In between my traveling, I decided I wanted to travel for a living. Right. So when I came back from the first trip, the Australia trip, I thought, do you know what, I'll apply to the services. So I applied to every single service. Yeah. the RAF were the quickest at getting back to me. Yeah, so started my application with them. Then there was the army, who was like, yeah, come on into the office. And unfortunately, I got lost on my way into Leeds. So I set off at 6 a.m, but my appointment was at 8, and 8:05 I was ringing up and I was like, look, I'm going around these one-way systems, I'm lost.
No. Yeah.
So I rang up, and unfortunately the guy on the other end must have been having a bad day, because he barked at me down the phone, and I was like, nah, it's not for me. So I turned my car around, went home, and the next day the Navy got in touch, and then the guy was lovely on the phone. It was Chief Day, I think he was called, over in Hull. And he was like, come on in, we'll just have a little sit down, little chat, have a brew. And that was really welcoming. The process still took 2 years.
Oh, really?
From there, it was probably the longer process out of all of them. But he made me feel welcome, so that's how I ended up in the Navy.
That was the Navy. So the Navy got chosen there. So that's really interesting, actually. Particularly the barking army. You dodged a bullet there, by the way. You could have ended up behind one of these flags, although it was fantastic for me. I had 15 years in the Royal Army Medical Corps. That's really fascinating. I guess also that gives you a lot of that kind of world experience as well. I would imagine that's going to be quite useful when you get in. So when you then find yourself, right, day one, here we go, I'm off to the Navy. So you're off to the train station or wherever someone's dropping you off. Where do you go to do your like basic training in the Navy? And I'm really interested now, because you've got all this experience of traveling Australia and across Europe. Are you then in with some little fresh-faced kids just coming out of school? And so where did you go, and how was that basic training?
So I went down to HMS Raleigh down in Plymouth, and as much as I've travelled the world, I've not really been down south that often, especially not down to the ends like Plymouth. So got down there to discover it was even on its own little island, and you had to get a ferry across. So I didn't even know that was a thing. So got over there, and you get off, you've got all your kit, and probably similar to yourself, they're quite quick to get rid of all your stuff and give you all the same uniform, make you all look the same. You have your picture taken for your ID, and then you kind of getting to know people through the day. There's a lot of signing forms, signing yourself up, really, saying I'm dedicated to this for the next 22 years. A lot of legal stuff.
So
and the first.
So you get all that kind of bombard, you don't you get everything sort of thrown at you in one go, and you get settled in. And I'm curious also, so in you go with all these other people. How long is that like basic kind of military training in the Navy? Because you're not a medic at this stage, are you? You're a Navy recruit. So how long does it take before you come to some kind of like passing out parade or march off or whatever you do?
Yeah, so it's a 10-week process, or it used to be. Obviously, this is pre-COVID, back in 2017, so it might have all changed now. But it was 10 weeks, and I think we were there until the 7th week, and then the 7th week we're allowed the weekend to go into Plymouth town for like a day, and then I'm sure on the 9th week we could go into town on the weekend as well.
Oh, even better, bonus. Now Plymouth, quite a nice place. So I know Plymouth. Got a very good friend of mine from Plymouth, and used to spend a lot of time. And did you get down Union Street? Yeah, it wasn't even. It wasn't for a long time. I think it was like a couple of hours. Yeah, run ashore quick, and then get back. Yeah, quick get back, and then get yourself sorted, your shoes bowled, and get ready for the next day. Yeah, and then so you get 10 weeks of that. Do you get some kind of parade at the end? Do people come and you march off, and people come down and sort of clap and wave and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, so pretty much from week 2 you're involved in the passing out parades. Week 2 you're stood right at the back for the classes that are passing out, and then you like work your way around the parade ground as the weeks go on, until it is your class at the end.
and
Yeah,
you're the one throwing your hat in the air.
oh, brilliant!
Yeah.
I didn't know that happened. So you're building up to that end process, and then eventually you're the proud, yeah, we've done it kind of thing. You get a bit of leave after that. Do you get a bit of time off?
It all depends on your branch. Some people go into holdover then, and they could be in holdover for months. Some people, they go home on the Friday and they're in phase 2 on the Monday.
Right, and then now you've got your basic training under your belt. When do you kind of get to choose? Yeah, I think I might be a medic then, or whatever. You know, is this the point where you choose your sort of career path? Is that how that works?
So you choose that in the career office when you're first having your interviews and stuff. Yeah, so that's why my process took so long, because for medics, the intake, they like to try and line up the basic to the phase 2.
Got it.
And we had a bit of a backlog with medics. If I'd gone to another branch, then I probably would have got in a lot sooner. But yeah, so because of the backlog, it took a while to get there.
And
yeah.
And do you, once you start your medical training, then do you stay at Raleigh, or do you go off? Do you have to go somewhere else for that?
No, so you go somewhere else. So it's at Lichfield near Birmingham.
Oh yeah.
Whittington Barracks.
Oh right, okay, it's all coming into place now. So I know that place, and so that's obviously they're doing the tri-service training there then.
Yeah.
Obviously from the Royal Army Medical Corps, that's where all our medics are trained as well. So and was it a tri-service course then? Are you in there with the Army and the Air Force?
Yeah, so it's an 11-month course, but for 6 of the months you're all in. So RAF, Army, and Royal Navy. So that was my first experience with the other services. Thinking,
you didn't mean that guy who barked at you, did you? From the
I don't even know who it was.
No,
not
you'll have heard him first, like. So you do. How long does that last, by the way? That phase of the training, Robyn.
Yeah, so you do 6 months with the RF and the Army, and then we all branch off into single service, because they do differ. RF's more like office based sometimes, and then Army, they go out to their different units and just become the medic for them units, whereas we can either be shore based or on a ship, and we get a lot more responsibility from what I've heard over the RF and the Army, as we can become sole medics, which did happen later on in my career.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
And then once that stage, that phase of the training is done, so you've got quite a good qualification as a medic now. Do you then, what happened to you? Did you go to a shore place, or did you actually go straight onto a ship? Or how did it work for you?
Yeah, so I went up to Faslane up in Glasgow. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I joined because I wanted to travel, ended up in Faslane. So I did 2 years there. But to be honest, I still got a bit of travelling, not abroad, but I was working in tenders, which is like our training unit.
Right.
So as well as working in the medical centre, doing fresh cases and your routine appointments, working on front desk and stuff, I also worked in tenders. I had 16 ships that I had to organise doing training for them, because they don't have a medic on board.
Yeah.
And they were all based in the northern region of the UK. So we had like Newcastle, Liverpool, Edinburgh, Hull. So I then had to decide where I wanted to be on what week, and liaise with the coxswains of them ships to decide what kind of training we wanted to give and when we wanted to give it.
Right. So you guys went and did that. You went organise and then get down to those particular vessels or units and deliver the training. That's quite a lot of responsibility straight off the bat then, isn't it? Really? Yeah,
it was kind of straight in at the deep end. I had a really good PO. He was amazing. Any questions I had, he took me under his wing.
Great.
Unfortunately, he had personal stuff that he had to deal with at home.
Yeah.
So he had to dip in and out, leaving me by myself sometimes. But I've benefited from that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to learn that resilience and just get it done, do what you need to do, basically. So that, probably quite daunting at the time, but I bet, when you look back, those things are quite blessings in disguise, really. So a couple of years there then. So when did you first get on a ship
Well, from there, so with us being shore based, we can get pinged any moment. You know, trawls come out, they say we need a medic here in the next couple of days, and they put a big trawl out, and your name gets picked out of a hat, basically.
Yeah.
So I got 5 of these opportunities, and I put my name forward every time. Unfortunately, they didn't all come off, but eventually, September 2020, there was a trawl for HMS Albion to go out, which was the fleet flagship at the time, and they wanted an extra medic. They had medics on board, but they wanted an extra medic because they were getting extra personnel on board for the exercise that we're doing. And I was like, "Yeah, where's it going? How long for?" And they were like, 3 or 4 months Mediterranean. I was like, "Yeah, I'm packing my bags. I'm going. Get me out of Glasgow. Like, I'm done." So yeah, I was off, packed my bags, and went and joined Albion.
Oh, brilliant! So, interesting. I'm going to bring up a picture of Albion in a moment. A couple of slides that I've put together, and so you find how many medics would you have on board that vessel, just out of interest?
So there was 3 MAs, one LMA. So that's equivalent to your corporal. And then you had a chief, and then you had a doc as well. We were lucky that we also had a physio and a dental team.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So when I joined, the group I came with, we also brought a physio and the dental team with us as well as the deployable unit.
That's really interesting. So I guess that's not the norm, is it? You wouldn't.
No.
No. Okay. Cool. How long was you on that vessel for then?
So it was from September until Christmas.
Right. Okay. So fair chunk of time. I'm curious. So I've only got army references in my brain. So army days, every morning, sick parade. People aren't. Is it that kind of thing on the ship? They line up, see the doctor. And what used to happen in army sick parades, you go, "No, there's nothing wrong with you. Here's some brufen and a bit of tube grip. You'll be fine in a couple of days." "Yeah, but my leg's hanging on." "Well, I'll be all right. Don't worry about that." Is it a similar kind of thing, but without the tube grip and the brufen?
With the tube grip and brufen, exactly the same. Yeah.
I didn't know that was a tri-service thing. That's excellent news then. Is it? What things are you seeing on a typical sort of tour on a naval ship then? Because it's quite a big mixture of people. Because there's still a lot going on these boats, aren't there? There's some dangerous stuff. You've got your engineering, and you've got all the catering. So you got the potential for a lot of things to go wrong. Are there any sort of patterns that occur on vessels around the world? Is there anything in particular that you have to deal with?
It could, honestly, every day is different. Drills that we do and the exercises we do. During our time away, there's a certain amount of time we have to do drills. To deem us safe. So we're constantly going over fires and floods and casualties. Like, that's a daily thing. So that takes up a big chunk of the day, because once you've done that and you've then done debrief about it and lessons learned, and then you're back to training again, that's a massive chunk. And then obviously, like you say, I've got to fit the fresh cases, we call it, but your sick parade. We do that at 8 in the morning, and then we do it after lunch as well, so 1 o'clock, 1:30, depending on the day. So we do that twice. And then there's just whole ship stuff that we have to do. So cleaning, washing pots for officers.
All those admin things that, and in that kind of vessel with all those people in, it's got to be bang on the money, hasn't it? And it's interesting you mentioned fire. I'm guessing that's got to be drilled in and dealt with quickly and efficiently should anything happen. While we're talking ships, then let me bring in a couple of slides. I'll stick you and me down there on the right hand side. Now this big boat with a gun, I've nicked that from the internet. It's freely available, by the way. I got it off Unsplash, which is a free picture website, so there's no copyrights. But this is, I believe this might be you with the pack on at the back. Is that Albion, or is that a different place?
No, that's quite recently, actually. That's on HMS Trent.
On the Trent. Ah, right. Okay. And where were you? Where did you go?
We spent a lot of time in Gibraltar, and then we headed down to Africa, which was really good.
So that's the other beauty, of course. You had that love of travel before you even got in there, and you in the Navy, and you said, "Oh, I want to." You kind of travel for a living, and by the looks of it, you certainly got that. This picture that you sent me the one on the right hand side of the screen there. Let me just get rid of that caption. Bear with me, because you sent me his on the right hand side, but that is the ship on the left, I believe. Again, that was taken from a website. This is the Albion. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. This is Albion.
So on the right, I was really intrigued about this, the picture that you sent me there, because it gave me a feel for the actual scale of these things. They're massive, aren't they? Huge.
Yeah.
What was going on in this picture that you've taken here then? What was happening at this time?
So we were performing an exercise for a mass casualty event. So in the case of we had to take on migrants or something, or if there'd been a mass casualty in a nearby country and we had to evacuate entitled personnel.
Yeah.
This was our setup for beds, and then you can see where the sheets are across. That was trying to represent some kind of confidentiality.
Yeah.
And then you come into like the medical bay, where we've set up beds, IVs, and that'd be more like your T1 casualties, so your priority casualties would be there. So that was us trying to exercise that, how we would set it up. You've got your clean side, your dirty side, and things like that as well, because you don't know what kind of mass casualty event you're going to come into.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, it's interesting. You hit it on the head. You don't know what you're going to find. You mentioned you went down to Africa and places. I think we're going to show a couple of pictures of that in a moment. And of course, you don't know, do you, whether you're dealing with Ebola cases or various disease. So yeah, having that kind of setup where you can bring them in and assess them and send them where they need to go, clean, dirty. That looks fascinating. And what the scale of it is huge. It's unbelievable. On a big ship, I nearly said boat then, on a big ship like that, how many people would you have from the medical team? You mentioned it might have been a bit extra with the physio and the dentist, etc. Is it a team of how many normally to look after a huge crew on that boat would it be?
So the crew on there could range 300 to 400 people, depending on the people that you get brought on for different exercises and such. But the medical side, probably about 5 maximum. Yeah.
Busy people then. Lots to do, because it's 24/7 pretty much. There's no sort of resting. Let's have a wander through. Now you're in this picture as well. Look, this is a good picture. This is a sort of actiony picture. So what's going on here then, Robyn? Where are we at and what's going on?
So this is on HMS Trent. I'm sat in the front of the boat just behind the stretcher.
Yeah.
I wouldn't usually be in that position. I'd usually be stood back, taking like a view of this scenario, because what we're running here is a person overboard exercise. Okay. So someone's fallen over, we're turning the ship around, we're getting the boats out, and we're going to go and scoop them up and hopefully save them. So where I'm sat, usually our first aider would be sat there. The person with the stretcher would also be a first aider, and I'd be stood well back, just commanding the scenario.
Got it. Is this a regular thing then? Is this something you do fairly often in practice?
Yeah, we run these quite regularly. They can take 20 minutes or they can take an hour and a half, depending on what we need to do, who we need to get trained up, if we need to run it again. And then again, you've got the debriefing, the cleaning of the equipment, bringing the boat back in. So in this scenario, I was like, I've not been out in the boat, so I want to go out. So and I had another medic on with me at the time, so he stayed and was the medic, and I was like, oh, I'll just pretend to be the first aider. So go out, scoop them up, check their airways, they're breathing, bring them back in, get them on the stretcher, and get them in the warmth.
And just for real, you know, to make it a bit of look real, did you chuck someone in? Did you chuck someone off the
No, unfortunately not.
You're not allowed to do that. No.
We've got a big dummy that we throw in, Big Fred.
Yeah, we had a few of those in my last medical unit. We had a few big dummies as well, but that's a different story. All right, that's fascinating. That's a great picture. Let me bring another couple up, because again, you know, you think Navy, you think ships, and you think, but it's not about that, is it? I know you go all, because you're all over the world, and you know, from my own personal experience of being associated with Navy people, we had I did some time in Belize, and we had the WIGS, the West Indian Guard ship was coming in, so I'm aware that you go ashore and you do stuff, then you help out with local communities. And am I right? I don't know what these particular pictures are. Maybe you'd like to take us through what was going on, because it looks quite interesting, whatever it is, especially the first one looks like having a big posh dinner there or something.
Yeah, so this is quite a recent trip over to Africa.
Yeah.
The first picture, I'm teaching BLS, so your basic life support, to the British Embassy over in Africa.
Yeah.
The second picture, we went over to a school and volunteered for 2 days. So it's a new school that they're building up, putting fans in, concrete in the floors, like completely from scratch. Obviously we went there from scratch. We just helped for a couple of days, and then we had to get on our way. But yeah, that was a really interesting experience. And then the third picture, every country that we come into, we had to basically do a recce of the hospitals and send a report back to see how good the hospitals could be for us, what kind of facilities they had. If we had casualty on board, could we send them there, or would it be better to go to a different port? So yeah, just a recce on the hospitals and sending the reports back to the fleet, so that they are aware for other ships as well.
Oh, that's really brilliant. Yeah, so everyone's got a good idea of what's out there, what's available, things that are great, things that are maybe not so great. Yeah, but I like those pictures, because it does, you know, what it gives is the depth of what you do. You're not just sat on the ship, you're not just in a med center or a sick bay, whatever the term might be. You know, you're out there, you're doing your teaching, you're doing the hearts and minds, helping local communities, getting in with other hospitals and other medical professionals. And I think that's really important for the purpose of this chat, whereby, you know, towards the end we're going to talk about what's next for you. Then this gives people a great sort of feel for the depth of the experience that you've got, and that you have now available for other organizations to really take advantage of the experiences that you've got. I've just got a couple of more slides, and then it kind of brings it around. So on the one side there, we've got you, the Navy medic, and in the middle we've got some. Did you do that CAS sim? Because that's pretty.
Yeah. So I like to make it a bit realistic if I can.
Well, it looks good. I was thinking she's either been out there and burnt somebody for effect, or done some really good CAS sim. And having done lots of CAS sim myself over the years, that's a good convincing burn. What I'd like to do, Robyn, is bring up this almost final slide, and it's a kind of a what's next then. So what we've spoken about, how time flies, 29 minutes actually. So what we've spoken about so far is a little bit of your sort of pre-Navy stuff, and I thought that was really, really important to get in for the purpose of this, because it shows that, you know, you've got experience. You didn't just come out of school, join the Navy, leave the Navy. You traveled the world. You went, you know, far places, Africa, Europe, Australia, wherever else it might be. And then we've got Martin. I'll bring your comment in a moment. Thanks for engaging. So Martin Brown's just passed a message on, which I'll bring onto screen in a moment. But your pre-naval experience, I think, is really important. And then you mentioned a couple of other key things that really resonated with me, which I think are invaluable for the next stage of your sort of career in the medical field, if you decide to stay in that. And that's that being in positions where you've got to do the decisions, you've got to do the thinking. You know, people, you've been put in positions where you've had to go training people, you've traveled the world, visiting hospitals, embassies. All those things are really important, building up the skill set that you obviously now bring to the table. So let's answer these questions at the bottom then. So is it fair to say that from very soon, in fact, you officially leave the Navy on the 15th of June?
Yeah.
I'm guessing you're not wandering around in Navy uniform now, are you? You're probably,
no, I've been on leave.
Yeah, you got maybe handed most of that, but all the crap stuff, all the good stuff, you've probably got in a cupboard upstairs, no doubt. But so you're going to be looking for various work opportunities, and I want to explore that a little bit now. So first things first, let me just close that down. I will bring this back on in a moment. Let me just close that for not that one. Let me just close this for a moment, and then we'll bring you back front and center. So you're going to be looking for opportunities going forward. Just give us a quick idea. So people who are either watching now, which people are, or those that watch later on LinkedIn and YouTube, what are you after, Robyn? What kind of work are you looking for?
So to be honest, I'm open to any opportunity that comes my way. I'm happy to travel. I'm happy to be away for a bit. I don't really mind, to be honest, if it's in the UK or not.
Yeah.
My eye is set on first aid instructing. I've recently done a course with NUCO to make me an instructor, so I can now give out my certificates.
Brilliant.
If all else fails, I'm going to try the self-employed route and just go both feet in, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm not shy.
There you go. So that's the way to look at it, because you know, if you don't try, you know what's going to happen if you don't try. Bugger all. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to be unemployed. I know that much.
Absolutely. Let's just focus in on a couple of points that you just said. I think they're really important. So we've gone through all of the experience that you've got. You've been in some pretty harrowing situations, no doubt, through your time. You've worked by yourself. You've been the medic. You've had to provide the treatment. You've had to react, treat people, look after people, and provide that care to people. And you've done that in some, pretty dicey conditions on occasions all over the world. So that's really important. You've got all that experience under your belt, and that gives you a cool level head approach to stuff. But you've done a little bit more than that. You've made that decision to leave and move on to the next chapter of your life. But I know from our talks, and I'll discuss this where we've had our initial chat in a moment, I know from our talks, you haven't just sat on your backside. The first thing you've done during your bit of downtime that you've had prior to formally leaving on the 15th, you've gone off, you've got yourself qualified, you're now fully fledged, you've got all of that medical experience, and you've translated that now into a very marketable civilian qualification. You're a first aid instructor. You did the NUCO course, so that's under your belt. So hats off to you for doing that. And then you're now available to for somebody to say, hey, guess what? We need somebody just like you. And again, I'm going to change that. If anybody's watching then and they think, yep, just what we need, a switched on, qualified, experienced medic who can do what they say on the tin, how are people going to contact you? What's the best means for people to get hold of you?
I've constantly got my phone on me, like most people these days. So email is probably the best, which I could provide you with, and you could probably message yourself through this stream. LinkedIn as well. I'm readily available on LinkedIn, and I'm quite quick on replying through LinkedIn. So search me up on LinkedIn and have a look at my profile and send me a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
That's a good call. So LinkedIn's a brilliant starting point. And what I'll do, Robyn, on when I do the write-up, which goes underneath the live video that's going out as we speak on the YouTube channel, I will actually put a link into your profile on LinkedIn, so they can just click that and go straight and find you. I won't put your email address or anything, because you'd end up getting bombarded by all the nutters.
Yeah.
The worldly nutters will be after you, and yeah, but let them come through LinkedIn. That's a great platform to be using. Work type, I think, we've probably hit on that there's options available to you now. Of course, you're a fully qualified first aid instructor, so there may be organizations out there looking for either to employ somebody directly, that's an opportunity, or probably more likely, I know there are lots of first aid providers out there, a lot of them with military connections and certainly military backgrounds, and many that are run by former serving military personnel from all services, who are always looking for good medics to come on board just as an instructor, run courses, and then not actually be on the books as an employed person. So are both of those options available to you then? Are you looking for either full-time or the opportunity for freelancing, I guess is what I'm looking at?
Yeah, I'm happy to do either or. Like I say, I'm looking at probably going down the self-employed route anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be subcontracted to wider companies.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. So open to suggestions at the moment. Contact you through LinkedIn. Now, I did put that final question there, look, but I think you've answered that already, that you're not really stuck where you're working. Travel's not a problem to you, although you're based in the north of the UK, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm Doncaster based.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not really fussed, to be honest. I'm happy to travel about, as you're probably aware.
Exactly. So happy to travel around. So yeah, so that I think that's a good thing. What I want to do, just very briefly before I move on to the final slide, is just bring in the questions. So Martin and I have had correspondence and dealings in the past. Martin's in security, and he's just made a comment on what we were talking about there. And thank you, Martin, for engaging with us. I appreciate it. That the intelligence that you were talking about, where you're going ashore, checking out these facilities, but is good for all of the services. That's obviously shared on a tri-service basis. So that again is a vital thing that you guys were doing. So before I move on to my last slide, I'm going to just quickly close that, bring you into right back into the center here. Is there anything that you want to particularly talk? Is there anything that we've missed? Anything I've not asked that you think, oh, that's really important, people ought to know this about me, or I did this? Is there anything you want to chuck in the mix here, Robyn, before we bring it to a close?
I think we've covered quite a lot, to be honest. I did a 2-year period in Stamford Hall in the rehabilitation hospital, which opened my eyes to a lot of things and actually helped me later when I become a lone medic. Working in that environment, it helped me diagnose things in the future. So that's been quite a big part of my career. At the time, it didn't seem like it.
It's interesting that, but it is, isn't it? It's really important, because it's that extra something that you've done. So yeah, that's a good one. I'm glad you brought that into the mix there. So the final slide I want to throw up is I think quite important, and I know this has been all about you, but if it wasn't for these, we wouldn't be sat here talking now, because this is actually where I first met your good self. And for those watching and those who watch later, I want to mention HighGround and Askham Bryan College, and they're linked. And Robyn's been through this experience, and I'll get rid of this slide in a moment and bring you back into the center and get your view of the experience. So for those who are unaware, HighGround is a charity aimed at military personnel, and predominantly helps military personnel and veterans, or people who are still serving, who have an interest in working in the outdoors, farming, agriculture, forestry, landed estates, that kind of stuff. People who want to be out and about in the wild. And they run a series of programs free of charge to the user. And Robyn's been through this, and we'll get her opinion in a moment. Free of charge to the service user or the veteran. And there's a couple of options available. There's an online course, they call them Rural Weeks, an online course which lasts for about 3 days. That's a virtual with guest presentations from various people, experts in their field from the rural sector, talking about life working in the outdoors in agriculture. And then there's the residential courses, of which there are currently 2, and one's down at Bicton College, and the other one that Robyn did is at Askham Bryan College. And I'll just mention briefly my understanding of these, and then we'll ask Robyn to give it from a user experience. These are residential courses. You go to the particular college, you spend a week there, and you have various presentations and lectures, for want of a better word. But there's a lot of hands-on, a lot of practical stuff. You go out to visits, you go out to farms, estates, forestry, whatever it might be, and you see it firsthand, and you talk to the people working in those environments, and you can live it and breathe it free of charge for a week in a group, a smallish group, normally about 8 to 12 people, a smallish group of like-minded people who are also looking maybe to go into that kind of life. So I wanted to mention HighGround and Askham Bryan College, because that's where we met at Askham Bryan College. Let me just close that. When I nipped down there, I got invited in to talk a load of rubbish about what I do, health, safety and risk and all that kind of stuff. And then while I was in there, remember that group of people, Robyn? There was this like little gobby ex-Navy medic, weren't they, in that group? And that's why I thought, and I say that in the nicest possible terms, and that's why I was so chuffed when you decided, yeah, I'll come on this, and because I think there's tons of jobs waiting for you out there. I'm hoping people realize that and snap you straight up. But the course itself, then, tell us a little bit about it in a snapshot. How was it? Robyn might have frozen. Let me close Robyn out for a moment. She can probably still hear me, and I'll bring her back on in a second. The course, though, I will try and bring Robyn back in 1 second. I think her camera might have frozen. But the course itself, turn up at the college, whether it be Bicton or Askham Bryan on the outskirts of York, residential, live in the accommodation, and there's evening activities laid on. And the feedback from the courses is really, really good. And I can't, so Robyn's popped off and that, so she's obviously been booted out. The feedback that I've heard myself from people is always of the highest praise for the work done by HighGround, the charity, and then the colleges down at Bicton and Askham Bryan, who basically put on all the events and put on all the visits and the presentations and the lectures. So if you are a member of any of the armed forces, if you're serving currently, or indeed if you're a veteran and you're thinking of maybe a life working in the outdoors, I've just had a message from Robyn on this side that her connection has gone, but it doesn't matter. That's absolutely fine. We achieved what we needed to achieve. So those courses at HighGround with the 2 colleges currently are highly recommended. And in the notes on the YouTube channel, I'm actually going to put links to, Robyn's back, I'm going to put links to the HighGround thing. So Robyn, let's bring you back in. Let's close that down. Yep, we've got you clear as a bell now. So I was just waffling on about the course itself, but how did you find it? Tell people how the experience went with the Rural Week that you did at Askham Bryan College.
So I went in there blind, never heard of it. It was an email that went round my office, and they were like, "Oh, Robyn, you're going on resettlement soon. Jump on this course." And I said, "All right, cool." I thought a week away, out of the office. And when I got there, I was pleasantly surprised, actually. There was people that had left the service 10 years ago. How they heard about it, I don't know. But yeah, it's a fast-paced week. there's a lot of information, definitely notepad and pen required for you to take in all the information. But you meet a lot of people. There's a lot of networking, which people don't like the word networking for some reason, but there's a lot of networking there. You're meeting loads of people, even if you think it's not for you. I went in there with my first aid head on. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go and do first aid, but I don't know what this week's going to give me. I met you. So you don't actually know what you're going to bump into during this week. It's about working on farms, working on estates, working in activity centres. So we went over to one of the activity centres and went and like abseiled off one of the walls. That was quite fun. I got up one morning and milked some cows at 4 a.m. We drove a tractor. Like, it's just, they put enough activities in there for it to not just be like death by PowerPoint. You're out, you're walking, you're out in the fields, you're out in the estates, you're being shown around places. Like, you go and visit an estate and you wouldn't actually think that so much happens, but there's so many people. A lot about volunteers. A lot of volunteers are needed. So even if you don't feel like you've got experience, there's always opportunity to volunteer. It opened my eyes to think, even if I can't get the job I want, like for the rest of life, I know there is opportunities out there, and I could rock up and hopefully bag myself a job.
Very true. And you've mentioned something that's really important there, Robyn, actually. And I was guilty of this myself, but I've been out the service a long time now, so all this social media malarkey, it really wasn't a big thing, you know. But what I see now is people, whether it be Army, Navy or Air Force, they ought to be planning for leaving the service maybe a year, maybe 2 years before they actually are coming out of that particular service. And networking is the key, like you've done yourself, where you got yourself onto LinkedIn. I'm going to take your picture off because you've frozen a little bit, but it doesn't matter. We'll see if it comes back on. But the networking thing's really important, because it doesn't matter who you're talking to or where you go, whether it's on any of the social medias. In particular, LinkedIn is particularly good. Get yourself a good profile on LinkedIn. Start engaging a little bit. You haven't got to be at it all the time, and just get out there. Let people know about you, because the skills that you've got as you transition from any of the services, the skills that you've accumulated in your time in the services, people need those in civilian street in spades. People are looking, actively going out and searching for ex-military people, but they won't find you unless you say, here I am and this is what I can do. And so really, do engage. And they, in fact, Martin, bang on the money, exactly what you're saying there. Look, Martin's putting the doors wide open. So many skills, not just as a medic, it's that wider skill set that the military is going to get into most people. Good timekeeping, on the ball, switched on, attention to detail, being there when you're meant to be there, dressed how you're meant to be dressed, prepared for what you need to be able to do. And those skills are second nature. So that's probably why a lot of civilian employers literally go out and actively recruit former military people, former members of all of the armed services, hence the BFO, the British Forces Resettlement Services, careers fairs, and all of these other job fairs directly aimed at military people. So I guess the message there is engage with them. Robyn's dropped out now, but that's fine. Do what Robyn's done, engage on a wider basis, get involved with chats like this, get involved with LinkedIn, get involved with other social media, but get out and talk to people, go to networking events. I think we'll round it up there. I want to say a huge thank you to Robyn for taking part. First person to come on Medic Zone. In closing, just to remember that mediczone.co.uk will launch very, very soon. The website is actually being built right at this moment as we speak, and it's not too far from completion. And it's going to bring a lot of things to the agenda, to the table, if you like, that people not just in the medical military community, but much wider than that, can get involved with as a wide community. But I won't say too much more about that. In closing, thanks to Robyn. The final thing for me to say is read the notes, please, at the bottom of the YouTube video. I'm going to put a link to Robyn's LinkedIn page there. If you need to reach, if you want to have a chat and link in directly with Robyn, please do so via LinkedIn, or contact me and I can put you directly in touch and get her to email you. But yeah, there's Robyn Snee out there, ex-Royal Navy medic as of the 15th of June 2024, available for work as a medic in the UK, first aid instructor in the UK, or wider afield remote medic type work. And bear in mind, she brings to the table all of that military experience, all of that medical experience, but that working in austere and remote environments as a lone medic as well. So there's a lot of skills for someone to go and grab. Thanks everyone, and please subscribe to the channel. Please feel free to share it widely, and look forward to